everybody, it's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core picks for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. In this video, we'll be covering my top 6 DFS plays for GPP contests this week, and I'll be building a majority of my lineups around. Now, these won't be locks, but players that I'm playing in at least 25, probably even 30% of my lineups this week for some of these large field contests. In terms of our results last week, we ended up really hitting up top. Our 2 plays up top were 75% Jon Rahm and 35% Tony Finau. Of course, both of them finishing first and second respectively. A lot of our other picks were just average, right? A few guys there in the top 10, a few in the top 25. Really, the main reason we didn't win the GPP last week is because we didn't have enough Kurt Kitayama and we didn't have Brandon Wu in the player pool. Sometimes it's about getting those diamonds in the rough, and typically that's our strong suit here on the channel. Our value picks video has been absolute fire for the last 2 weeks now, and here it was really our downfall, I would say, if anything. We still had a profitable week, still cashed out for about 1.5x profit, so can't complain from that front. But in terms of our modeling, we were spot on. It was a brand new golf course. We expected it to be a little bit of a bomber's affair, and towards the end of the week, particularly on Sunday, you saw that, right? Guys like Tony Finau taking it to 8 under par, Jon Rahm, of course, winning. It was extremely apparent with the leaderboard. So going forward for the Mexico Open, we have a much better idea of that golf course. But now let's shift our focus to this week, right? We're dealing with a golf course we don't see all that often. And even though it's the Wells Fargo Championship, an event we've had on tour for quite some time, we're going to be at TPC Potomac, which is a course that used to be on the Tour Rotunda, first off in the 80s and 90s, most recently in 2017 and 2018 for the Quicken Loans National, but now it's for the Wells Fargo Championship, of course, because Quail Hollow will be hosting this year's President's Cup. So with that being said, we have a little bit to talk about with the golf course, and of course, we've got to get into our core picks. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. All right, to start off this preview, let's head over to the key stats section to get an idea of what I'm prioritizing in my player pool. So first off, shots gained approach. That should not be a surprise to anybody. The emphasis here is on the 125 to 150 range and the 150 to 175 yard range. Both of those are going to be overutilized this week, along with the 175 to 200 range. So certainly narrowing in on some of those mid irons where players are going to be in the range of anywhere from, let's say, a pitching wedge up to something like a 3 iron. Next up is driving accuracy. If you guys haven't seen the course breakdown, first off, I highly recommend you check it out. But the Spark Notes version of it is it's a woodland parkland style golf course with a ton of natural areas. And by natural areas, I mean fescue that's at least knee-high deep, if not waist-high deep at certain points. So there's a huge driving accuracy factor. The rough is also gnarly. It's at least 3 inches, typically closer to 3.5, 4 inches by the time that we get to the weekend. And with Kentucky bluegrass being out throughout the entire property along the Potomac River, it makes for an interesting affair when you miss these fairways. It's not so easy to advance the golf ball, and of course, if you end up in those natural areas, a lot of times you're taking unplayables. So it's going to be something that I'm narrowing down on. Same thing with shots gained putting on bent grass. Now, of course, over 50% of our modeling is split between the top 2 stats, so not nearly as much emphasis as we would see from week to week, but am looking at bent grass stats because these are some pretty pure bent grass surface, A1, A4 bent grass. Also taking a look at par 4 scoring. Anytime we're on a par 70, that is certainly going to be the case. The fact that there's 12 par 4s in the docket rather than the usual 10 that we see from week to week. Driving distance, usual allotment there at 9. It's right around, a 10 to maybe 15% weighting from week to week. So slightly less emphasis than usual, but still part of the modeling. It's always a little bit of a boost. Shots gained approach from the rough, also taking a look at, given that we have that 3 to maybe even 4 inch rough that the players will have, and then par 3 scoring as well. Now heading over to the Draftkings projections. And of course, guys, if you're looking for direct access to the spreadsheets, they are on my Patreon page. It is just $1 for the month to join that page. I highly recommend you do it. A link is down in the description of this video to go ahead and do so. And of course, there'll be ownership at some point this week, my player pool, whether that I have them in cash, my 2 to 3 max single entries, a lot of data, shots gained data that you see for all of these previews, all on that spreadsheet. So again, a huge value. I highly recommend you check it out. Either way, shameless plug aside, let's hop into the core plays. All right, the first core pick I'll be taking, our spend up option this week, is going to be Matt Fitzpatrick at an even $10,000. Now, he's a little bit cheaper than most of these spend-up options I go to, but considering that he's a great course fit here, also somebody I think will be a little bit overlooked this week, at least comparatively. I mean, he's usually one of the most chalky plays from week to week on the PGA Tour, and deservingly so, and I'll show you why. We take a look at his shots gained profile. The guy is good at just about everything. He gains across all four major statistical categories, similar to somebody like a Xander Schauffele, Patrick Henley, just hasn't had those flashy performances, hasn't won in these big field events, not somebody who's threatened taking down the FedEx Cup or something like that. And until he does so, he's not really going to get that recognition. But for us DFS hardcore fans, people that really look into the stats, we know that he's an up-and-comer, somebody who's on that pedigree, just, has to have the experience, the actual experience and course time out there to get those accolades. So it's just a matter of time before Fitzpatrick ends up being, world renowned for his talents. And it comes down to this being also a great venue for him. So on top of the fact that he's well-rounded, which pretty much plays at any golf course, right? He's going to be a solid fit no matter where we go. He's a little bit more of a precision guy more than a power guy, especially off the tee. The guy is extremely strategic. He understands that courses like a Sedgefield Country Club, where he's had plenty of success, and what he's going to have to do this week is set up angles into these greens. Of course, also miss some of these marshy areas, the natural areas I mentioned before, which can gobble up golf balls and really end your round and send it in the wrong direction. So I like the fact that he's a strategic player. He gains across all four categories, and of late has been playing some pretty solid golf. So if we take a look at the recent form for Fitzpatrick, outside of the RBC Heritage where he missed the cut as chalk, where that's also why I think he'll be a little bit lower owned. Part of the reason why I think he's going to be a sneaky play this week, but looked good at the Masters. A few events before that was making some cuts, posting some top 25 finishes. Just a well-rounded player where you're not going to get in trouble in any one category. I mean, even at the RBC Heritage, it was just a few awry shots off the tee where he had to re-tee once or twice that set him back from the cut. He was playing pretty well elsewhere. I mean, gaining on approach. The putter was actually his worst category, where he ended up losing nearly 3 strokes to the field. That's his worst putting performance ever. I mean, this is one of the most consistent guys with the flat stick that we've seen, particularly this year. And that's why the shots gained putting is just about 0.2 shots per round. Typically, it's closer to right around a third of a stroke per round. In fact, the last time we checked in with Fitzpatrick, he was getting over a third of a stroke per round in every category. So I would expect him to have some positive regression in that category, especially now that he gets the change up the surface, right? Before at the RBC Heritage, those were some POA Trivialist surfaces. I guess Bermuda grass overseeded with that POA Trivialist, but now he gets on some pure bent grass greens, right? He doesn't have to deal with that wacky hybrid type of surface that they were only playing there because they had to in the Southeast. Now he gets to play in some actual greens, and I would expect that to maybe give him some confidence, maybe be the change that he needs to get his mojo back. And just with the shots gained metrics that we've seen, given the fact that he's only $100 less than Corey Connors, who's going to be mega chalk this weekend, I'm still going to play Corey Connors. I mean, you look at my ranking, he's number 1 there, so he's still going to be in my player pool. Matt Fitzpatrick's going to be maybe that diamond in the rough up top. So certainly somebody I'm going to have in plenty of my lineups. Next up, we have Russell Henley at $9,300. In terms of the modeling, it absolutely loves him. And here on the channel, I love to give Russell Henley crap. He's somebody who I always expect to be overrated, overowned when it comes to DFS. And this week, that might be the case. He might be extremely popular, but this is one of the very few weeks where I'm willing to eat that chalk. He's just a perfect fit, whether you're looking at the numbers, of course, the eye test, just from a logic perspective, everything checks off for Russell Henley. So first and foremost, from the logic perspective, from a course fit, in a generalistic standpoint, he's accurate off the tee, right? He knows when to club down. He is certainly one of the best driving accuracy players in this range. He's one of the best approach players in the world, period, especially over the last 24 to 50 measured rounds. And with the putter, he's streaky. So if we take a look at the shots gained metrics, they completely back that up, right? He's losing off the tee. That's because he's, again, more of a precision guy than a distance guy. Exactly what we're looking for at this venue. Gaining close to 0.9 strokes per round on approach was just ridiculous stuff, up there with guys like a Gary Woodland, who's just having an outstanding run of golf right now, gaining around the green and gaining with the putter slightly. If he can go out there, do his thing off the tee, keep himself in position, lean into that strong suit, which is that approach play, one of the best players in the world right now when it comes to those irons. and maybe spike a hot putter in one or just two of the rounds here, he's live to at least finish in the top 5, if not end up winning this event. So it's going to come down to the putter. He's going to have to bring that for at least 2, hopefully 3 rounds. If he has a hot putter for 3 rounds, book it. This guy's winning this golf tournament. But in either circumstance, really like his floor. It's one of the safest picks in all of the field to go out there and make the cut. In fact, I have him at a 75% projected cut rate, where some of the guys in the 10K range aren't even above that, right? Abraham Answer's just 73.7%. So somebody down here at just $9,300 has a better chance than Answer making the cut. That's a pivot that I'll be making all day. So the modeling loves him. From a logic standpoint, it loves him. The only thing holding me back is just my personal grudge against him. And this week, like I said, it's something that I'm going to put aside just because the metrics are telling me so much about him. It's somebody that I just can't keep out of the player pool. Next up, for our bread and butter play in this 8K range, the guy that I'm going to be building a lot of lineups around, going to be Max Homa at $8,600. Now, he's a regular here in the channel, and if we go over to the shots gained metrics, it'll be readily apparent why. So first and foremost with Homa, an absolute maestro with the ball striking. And of course, if you guys have seen the course breakdown video, you know that it's all about ball striking here. Off the tee, got to be accurate. Now, Max Homa, he deals with issues with the accuracy from time to time, but we saw it at Genesis for Riviera Country Club. He was more than willing to club down when he needed to get the ball in the short stuff. And of late, he started to pop at these short golf courses. Typically in the past, it was all about kind of that bomb and gout strategy for him, where he would lean into that ball striking, maybe get that hot putter for a round or two, and threaten a tournament, once or 2 months. Now Max Homa is finishing in that top 25 pretty much every single week. He's taking himself to a new level when it comes to his FedEx Cup point production as a result. And you're also seeing him start to contend more. And for him, it all comes down to the putter. The ball striking has become one of the most consistent games in all of the world. The guy's been gaining off the tee and on approach for the last year, maybe even 2 years for I can remember. I've never seen him lose in either one of those categories. Just has been unbelievably consistent with both of those there. The putter is the really inconsistent part, right? He goes through lulls where he'll lose with the putter for 2 to 3 events, and then he'll go out there and gain 6 to 7 strokes on the field with the putter. Of course, that's when Max Homa wins golf tournaments, because he's already going to gain a ton of strokes to the field with the ball striking. If he can go out there and do it with the flat stick, he's borderline unbeatable. So in terms of his upside, it is certainly there, just has to bring it with the flat stick. But from a floor perspective, love the ball striking. Now, the one problem I have with him, in anytime you get into the 8K range, right, in the 9 and 10K, you might have some flawless plays, people that you don't have any concerns about. Russell Henley, of course, it is the mental aspect. The guy does tend to choke from time to time. I hate to use that word, but he does. In the 8K range and below, you're going to have at least one glaring problem. And the glaring problem is the accuracy off the tee. So hopefully Max Homa can play a little bit more strategic this week. Take a few plays from Matthew Fitzpatrick's playbook, go out there, maybe play by the numbers a little bit more. I could certainly see him having a really big week. So either way, certainly going to be in my player pool, a core pick for us here in the 8K range. Now that we're starting to get towards the more value pick side, right, $8,000 and below, our value pick here is going to be Cameron Young at $8,000. So the last guy in the 8K range, the last man in perhaps the best play in that range. You can see in terms of recent form, number 6 in the field, number 11 in terms of total model ranking. And the one concern with Cam Young, and I can say there's 2 concerns here, but the major concern is the shots gained putting on bent grass. Now, it's negative 1.66 shots per round, which you would assume would be a really small sample size. That is 12 rounds, right? That's not like a 2 or a 4 round sample size where he went out there, missed the cut at 2 events, just had 2 bad weeks with the putter. It's more like 4 or 5 events where the putter hasn't cooperated on bent grass. So for Cameron Young at $8,000, that is something that kind of holds me back. But if we take a look at how he's played of late, how could you not love this kid? Take a look at the shots gained metrics, just otherworldly, gaining close to a stroke per round off the tee, 0.824 shots gained per round. On approach, he's been right around a neutral player, kind of popping in that category. When he's been out there and gained with the irons, he shot something like 6 to 7 under par. That's why we've seen him as first round leader, popping at the RBC Heritage. Of course, that really shouldn't have fit his game. And the putter, the same story, very much an inconsistent player with the irons and the flat stick. But of all the categories to be inconsistent with, those are the two to be inconsistent in, because when you pop in both of those categories, you borderline win golf tournaments, like what we saw at the RBC Heritage. Like I said, not a good foot for him. You have to be very much it's precision over power at that venue. He found a way to be that type of golfer. He went out there, was clubbing down when he needed to, and even when he took the big stick out on holes where it wasn't necessary, he showed incredible accuracy with the big driver. I mean, he hits it out there 325, 330 yards, but you wouldn't know it with how accurate the guy was. So if he can do that same thing with the ball striking, I don't care what the putting looks like. I don't care if he's been horrible on bent grass for his career. He's going to turn it around at some point. That is certainly an outlier. On all the other surfaces that we've seen, he's a gainer to the field, or at the very least right around a neutral putter. So somebody that I'm buying in on, even with the weird stats on bent grass. And he might be a little bit unpopular just because of the sentiment with his driver, right? He's a little bit inaccurate, but like I said, just look at his last performance at the RBC Heritage, a very similar course to what we're going to have this weekend. He was able to have a lot of success there. So certainly somebody I'll be buying in on. And in terms of points per dollar, one of my highest projected plays on the slate. And in terms of made cut percentage, he's also, head and shoulders above his peers. In fact, right around 10% higher than a lot of the guys priced around him. A very similar made cut percentage to somebody like a Max Homa, and you're getting him down here at just $8,000. So I like him in terms of a value pick, even if he might be a little bit more expensive than most. Next up, we have Joel Dahmen, and he's going to be our diamond in the rough. Now, I know he's not super cheap, but I would expect Dahmen to be in the 4, maybe even 5% owned range here. Not very highly owned, certainly not very chalky on the slate. And in terms of a course fit, he gets it done from the precision side, right? If you take a look at the shots gain metrics, he is gaining with his off the tee play, which is slightly deceiving, I'd say, because he's not long, right? He's getting it out there 300, 305 yards at the very most. So the reason why he's gaining to the field is he's extremely accurate, hitting right around 73% fairways, gaining with his approach play. That's always really been his calling card. He's gained a ton of strokes with his irons over the years and inconsistent with the short game. He's always kind of going to lose around the green. The one thing about this venue is it is extremely easy to get up and down here. A little bit more of a resort style type of TPC course than it is something like a Players Championship stadium course type of venue. You can get away with having a shoddy around the green play. It's more about being precise off the tee, being able to take advantage of the approach play, and spiking the hot putter from time to time. And that's what Joel Dahmen does best. So I don't think he's necessarily live to win this event. Hell, I don't know how likely it is for him to finish in the top 3, but in terms of top 5, top 10 upside, I think that's where he starts to shine. He's somebody who can go out there, spike with a putter for round 1, round 4, something like that, 2 out of the 4 rounds, bring the solid iron play, the ball striking for the entire week, and have that top 10 performance. Unlike a Cameron Young, he's not going to go out there, shoot 7, 8 under round every single round. He's going to do it more in the 2 to 3 under range every single day, kind of taking the turtle approach rather than the rabbit approach. And at $7,600, I just think he's going to be a little bit more slept on than he should be. So fair price tag right there. The recent form hasn't been otherworldly, right? If you take a look at some of the recent form for him, first off, at $7,600, you can see 29th at Zurich, right? Made the cut there. 12th place at Heritage, which is one of our comp courses. That's very nice to see. And down there in the Florida swing, he made a few cuts. So he hasn't done anything super flashy. His best finish was the 12th place at the Heritage, which if you're going to have any sort of good finish of late, I want it to be at the Heritage, right? That is by far the best comp course that they've played over the last 4 to 5 events. So a lot of things looking up for Dahmen at this venue. And now lastly, we have Lucas Glover at $7,200. He's our flyer pick down here, but somebody I am willing to get a significant amount of ownership to, because you really want to target him at these short precision type of tracks where it's not about distance off the tee. You can lean into your accuracy, more of the strategic side of golf, and gain all of your strokes with the irons. So you take a look at where he's succeeded over the years, Lucas Glover, it's those type of tracks for sure. And over the last 24 measured rounds, after his win, he had a horrible stretch of form. He missed like 5 straight cuts. Clearly was a little bit detached from the game, and really can't blame the guy. When you win for the first time, especially in that long of a stretch between wins, you're going to celebrate it. You're going to enjoy it a little bit, right? Kind of disconnect from the game. You couldn't blame somebody for going out there and doing that. And over the last 24 measured rounds, so a little bit of a shorter sample size, he's getting back to doing what he does, right? He's gaining off the tee, getting close to a actually third of a stroke per round. I'm close to 0.4 strokes per round off the tee. A lot of that due to his precision, not necessarily the longest player, but he's also not short, but extremely accurate. On approach, he's slightly gaining to the field, slightly gaining around the green, and with the putter, losing, right? That's kind of his calling card as well, right? He's going to lose with the putter, going to be extremely inconsistent with the flat stick, but when he can go out there, even just be a neutral player to the field, is when he finishes in the top 10, right? Top 15. When he gains to the field, which doesn't happen that often, kind of similar to somebody like a Sergio Garcia. He goes out there and wins golf tournaments, finishes in the top 2, 3 of golf tournaments. So he's somebody who does have that GPP winning upside. He does even have winning upside, period, in this field in terms of an outright perspective. But in DFS, when you're looking for a top 10, maybe a top 5 finish from somebody down here in the $7,000 range, I certainly think that is well within his range of outcomes. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this week's core picks. Before you hop on out of here, let me know who you think wins this event down in the comments. I'm going to take a little bit more of an ambitious approach this week. Last week I thought it was Jon Rahm, but no duh, everyone thought Jon Rahm was going to win. I'm going to go ahead and take Cameron Young this week, right? Somebody a little bit further down the board, a little bit more of a creative pick there. But go ahead and let me know who you think wins down below. As per usual, going to have you covered for all of the usual DFS content, whether it's value picks, our fades and sleepers, the DFS live stream Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to stay tuned for all of that. If you haven't already liked the video, I would appreciate it hugely if you went and smashed the like button before you hopped out of here. And also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already done that. That way you don't miss any of the content to come here for, first off, this week, but also all of the golf tournaments to come. Best of luck with all of your lineups for this week, your outright bets, if you're going in that direction, and let's get this cash, guys.